evening, good afternoon, good day to you. Welcome to Bayou Sports Talk here in the Bayou. We have a great panel before you. Let's holler at them, Coach.
It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Boston community. Shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. If you get a chance, you get an opportunity, check out my latest Southern University video from last night. In addition to that, uh, I'm going to get ready to drop another Southern University video later on today. And in addition to that, I'm going to go live with my brother, Jared O'Levin Green. And I'm going to hop on his panel later on this evening. But hopefully we have a good show today here on Bayou Sports Talk.
Okay, we have another great panelist before you. Holler at them, Ray.
How's it going? How's it going? Hope everyone is doing well. Everyone's, living good. Just here to give my input and my takes on the subjects that we are going to talk about today. So I'm just looking forward to getting into it with you guys and having a great discussion.
All right, well, let's dive in, fam. Let's talk about Embiid being the MVP of the playoffs as well as how the playoffs are going. So, Ray, would you like to start us off? What are your takes?
My takes on the NBA is going very good. It's very entertaining. Of course, I don't think this is even arguable. I think the best series that's going on right now is the Lakers versus the Warriors. Steph Curry versus LeBron James has developed into one of those classic uh, rivalries slash matchups that will be talked about for ages. Two of those icons, going head to head. And I didn't know both of them. Of course, I knew LeBron was from Akron, Ohio, but I did not know Steph Curry was born in Akron, Ohio as well. So and if you go Google it, Steph Curry is from Akron, Ohio. And I found that to be very interesting as well. But the Knicks versus the Heat, that series is pretty good. I got the Knicks winning this series before Jimmy Butler got hurt, but Jimmy Butler has been hurt, and the Knicks won their last game. I got the Boston Celtics, beating the 76ers and the MVP of the league, Joel Embiid, which I'm finally happy he finally won the MVP, even though he had to be very outspoken for it. I feel like the Denver Nuggets versus the Suns, a lot of people thought that the Suns was going to get swept, even though it did seem that way. I just knew that the Suns was going to bounce back. And I just feel like that series, the Suns versus the Nuggets, that series will go to a game 7. And for some strange reason, I feel like the veteranness and Kevin Durant and just Devin Booker getting on fire. I feel like that's going to really emerge down the stretch of that series. And I got the Suns taking that series, but the playoffs has been very good and entertaining so far. So.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts, Coach? And do you agree with Ray's take on the playoffs that the Warriors and the Lakers, that's going to be a great series, as well as him taking the Knicks over Miami? What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, in terms of the Embiid uh, winning the MVP, I think he was the clear cut winner in my estimation. I felt like he was the best player this season in terms of being the most valuable to his team, so on and so forth. So I think he's definitely the MVP. Now, in terms of his take on the playoffs, I disagree. First of all, in terms of the Heat in the Knicks series, I'm still rolling with the Heat. I think Jimmy Butler, he's been nicked up, but I don't think there's anything that's gonna keep him out the playoffs. When he has the opportunity to advance to the next round. So I think the Heat. I think Jimmy Butler's gonna return. I think the Heat is gonna win that series. Now, I think he's right if Jimmy Butler cannot return, but I think he'll bounce back, and I think they'll win that series. In terms of the 76ers and the Celtics series, I think the Celtics is going to win that particular series. In terms of the Nuggets and the Suns, I think the Nuggets are going to win that series. I think, and between the Golden State Warriors and the Lakers, I think the the Golden State Warriors are going to win in seven. I think basically the Warriors have no answers for Anthony Davis as long as he does what he does. I think the thing about me as a Pelicans fan over the years, when Anthony Davis, he just doesn't have the killer instinct. I mean, in all actuality, barring injuries, he should be the best player in the league at this point. However, he just does not have he has a talent, but he doesn't have that dog in him. I mean, I've watched players like that over the years. I've coached players like that, and he just strikes. He's just one of those guys for me. He doesn't have that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type killer instinct. So the Golden State Warriors has no match for him. But at the same token, I think on the other side, I think Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole has a competitive advantage. So basically, it's a battle of the two versus the three. And I think with the championship pedigree, I think Golden State Warriors are gonna pull it out. And like I said, I think the Nuggets are going to beat the Suns. So in the conference finals, you'll be looking at the Nuggets and the Warriors and the 76ers and the Celtics. So, that's my take on that particular uh, topic. I mean, but the playoffs have been good. It's really going to be interesting to see, who can who can put it all together and who can win the championship this year. But like I said, I mean, that's my pick for those particular series.
I got a quick question for you, Coach. How many? I know I picked the Suns to win the series, and you just said you picked the Nuggets. I'm just curious, how many games you think is going to take for like your prediction? How many games you think is going to take them to pull that series? I got to go in the game.
Uh, I think I say 5 or 6, but if I had to put an exact number on it, maybe 6, maybe 5. The reason being is because I think by them giving up so much to get Kevin Durant, they just don't have enough depth to match up with the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets are a much deeper team. They have, you know, a variety of different players that can score the ball. Really, if with Chris Paul going down and him being injured at this point, and he's an older guy, so he's not going to bounce back. Unlike Jimmy Butler. So without Chris Paul, you know, I'm gonna say maybe a gentleman's sweep, maybe 6. Uh, if I had to pick, I'm, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna say 6 in 6 games because, like I said, at the end of the day, the the Suns just aren't deep enough. I mean, basically, for them to really have a chance to win, like Booker and Durant almost have to play from wire to wire, and now with Chris Paul being, you have to rely more on campaign and some of the other guys that they really didn't give any run to, like T.J. Warren and some of these other guys. That's why I didn't understand why Monty Williams didn't go deeper into his bench, just to try to match up with the Nuggets. So it's gonna be interesting to see, what adjustments can be made on either side.
For someone like myself who I keep up with the basics, but what about what's his name who used to be with the Lakers, who was traded to the Suns? What is his name?
Braun?
What's his name?
Talking about Braun?
No, he's an older guy. They were thinking that he was a problem for the Lakers, that he wasn't meshing well with LeBron and with
You talking about
AD.
Russell Westbrook?
Yes, is he still
No, he's with the Clippers.
okay. I'm sorry. I don't know why I was thinking he was with the Suns. That's why I was stuck thinking
No,
it was kind
he's with the
of
no,
okay.
he's with the Clippers.
And how is he doing overall there?
Playoffs.
Well, I know they're
Yeah, yeah.
not
I mean,
in the playoffs,
they
but
got bounced out the playoffs,
He
but
he in
but
Cancun. That's how he doing.
how okay. All right. Uh Okay, so let's move on in basketball. Let's talk about our LSU girls and with the LSU receiving more transfer because I think a lot of people see that they are on fire and they want to be a part of that and perhaps because they are expected to win another title. What do you think, Ray? Because I have them for if they having all of these people that are on fire and expected to elevate them. Do you think the same?
Yeah, of course, of course. They got LSU. They predicting for LSU and UConn to meet up in the championship game, and of course, man, like with the transfer portal, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's really. Usually, teams will have to rebuild, but it's not rebuilding, it's reloading at this point. And you can see Kim Mulliken doing it, and as far as like NILs, um, when you look at Flan J. Johnson, she was on America Got Talent before she even stepped foot on LSU campus. Like, you know, and you look at Angel Reese, like she's getting those NIL deals for who she is. So it's like you could just tell like Kim Mulliken is letting those players be themselves. That's how they obtain those NIL deals. It's not just because they're going to LSU. It's because they're being themselves, just like the girl Murrow who just committed to LSU. I don't know if y'all seen how she committed to LSU. She committed to LSU through a video promoting her NIL deal. So it's like, I guess like her NIL deal is like one of these chats, like AI chats. And so she's pretty much talking to the chat, like, hey, what's a university I could go to that will improve my skills, that will make me better, this and that and the third. And at the end of the video, the AI chat ended up telling her just, the place where you should go is Baton Rouge. You're gonna be able to achieve all those things that you want. And so she committed that way, she committed through an NIL deal. So I think that's fire, and that's a result of Kim Mulliken just obviously letting those girls be themselves. I was looking at the pictures, when Haley Van Lith and Anisha Morrow, they went to LSU. Angel Reese, like the other teammates and people a part of the athletic department, and their pictures with them, so you could tell it's like they're meshing together. And I don't know, I guess it's just a unique skill and ability that Kim Mulliken has, where she could take all of those personalities, all of those players where you think they might want a ball hog, because that's literally like a big four, a big three. Angel Reese, where Haley Van Lith came from, she was the go-to person, and where Anisha Morrow comes from, she was the go-to person. And all of them are coming to LSU knowing that I'm gonna have to shed a rock. And they all got like these personalities, but that's the thing, you could tell where they head at. Iron sharpen iron. So great players always like to play with great players. So you could just tell Kim Mulliken has this special skill set to allow all those girls to mesh together and play with chemistry together. And I'm gonna be very excited to watch this dream team come together in Baton Rouge.
And Ray, that's one thing I can say. You hit a lot of those thoughts that I was thinking as well, because when you have a coach that could bring all of this out in everyone, that's what you want. That's what you're looking for in a coach that can develop you as well as let you be yourself. And so, and that's something that I'm looking forward to as well, And then you have a lot of people see the potential that this coach has as well as the players, and they will go, a lot of these players will go far beyond being just a player in the college league. They're going to go to WNBA hopefully as well. So coach, are you thinking the same? What are your thoughts about the NIL with LSU, and what are their potential as well as with the coach?
Well, the thing about the NIL deals, basically, they change the landscape of college sports. If you look at just from a college football perspective, at one point, like Alabama was the dominant team in terms of college football for college football. But I think the NIL deals have kind of leveled the playing field, and you have had a team like Georgia emerge. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to women's basketball. Basically, LSU won the championship this year, and I think a great deal of it has to do with the fact that I think they have the most NIL money available. And I think the fact that they won a championship, they're going to become the power in women's basketball because players see the NIL money. I mean, if you look at somebody like Andrew Reese, the Bayou Barbie, basically she makes more money than every WNBA player in terms of just their straight salary. So that's the reason why she's not in a rush to get to the WNBA, because once she gets to the WNBA, if she doesn't get some type of endorsements to supplement the NIL deals, essentially she's going to make less money than she's making now in college. So at the end of the day, the reason why certain teams have emerged in terms of basketball, NCAA basketball, for men and women, for college football, the reason why certain teams have emerged as powers is because the NIL money they have available. And that's the reason why it's just total chaos in terms of NCAA football because of the transfer portal. These guys are jumping in and out the portal. And part of that is because of all the NIL money that's available. And basically these guys, of course they won't play right away, but in addition to that, they won't get as much money as they possibly can get, for not only the scholarship, but the NIL money also.
Okay, so Ray, do you agree with what Coach is saying? And do you foresee more players going in and out of the portal? Because and I know this is something that many people are not talking about, well, maybe talking about, but have you saw, and this is not in basketball, but I'm just speaking in something that I saw in the in the news, or people talking about how with Dion, how his players are going more into the portal, you know, looking for other schools that will take them as they are instead of developing them. And that's what I see. To me, this is my opinion, that these players are not wanting to be developed more on the scale that Dion is, or Coach Prime is wanting to develop them. Do you agree, Ray?
So that question was about Dion in specific or in general?
Just in general, with the players going into the portal and these players
Okay.
being developed,
Okay.
do you agree with that?
So I mean, I don't think people are transferring just because of NIL deals. Because I mean you got people who not even starting that's transferring. That's obviously not because of an NIL deal. So it's like three main reasons. You could probably say the number one reason people are transferring is because they want to start in position. It's not like every single player gonna get an NIL deal. You got Bryce Young probably was the only person on the Alabama team to have like an NIL deal. It's not like every single player that was starting at Alabama had an NIL deal. So that's like a rare case. I ain't gonna say rare, but it's not like it's something that's like everybody who's playing college football who's a starter getting NIL deals. So I feel like that ought to be the last reason somebody would transfer is for an NIL deal. But I would say the number one reason is so they could start. They could get a starting position. They could win a championship. I was talking about the LSU girls. I'm not saying that Nisha Morrow committed to LSU just so she could get an NIL deal. I'm pretty sure, she wants to play with dogs and win a championship, like most people. So, some people, they're going to transfer to a better team if they were confident in themselves. Like, what's this cornerback name? He went to LSU, then he ended up going to Alabama, and he ended up being undrafted. He was like the Eli Ricks. Eli Ricks was a starter at LSU. He was a dog. He was real good.
5-star player too.
Yeah, 5-star player. He was a starting cornerback at LSU. Did good, started, played everything. But he just transferred to Alabama for some apparent reason. I'm pretty sure he just wanted to go to Alabama and win a championship, which he didn't even win the championship. And LSU had a tight end as well who ended up transferring to Georgia. and I believe he won a championship as well. So some people, they transfer to play with better players and get a championship. Some people, they may be on a championship caliber team, but not getting the playing time that they want. So they'll go to a smaller school just to get a starting position. Like I just seen, it was like this third string quarterback from Oklahoma just received the offer from Southern University, our alma mater, to be, a quarterback. And so I'm looking at stuff like that. He could potentially transfer to Southern, knowing that, like, man, I'm most likely going to be better than all these quarterbacks, in the QB room. He probably could, I don't like saying it like this, but he probably could easily get the starting position. Him being a former, the 42nd ranked recruit in the nation in his class. So, people transfer for several different reasons. So I wouldn't say that, the main reason people are transferring is because of NIL deals. But I would agree that that would be a factor for some people, but I'm not saying that's like majority of the factors.
Okay, and really, I hadn't thought about it like that. That people were just looking for a deal or whatnot. They were just getting in the portal because they wanted to be somewhere else. The coach. Do you agree?
I partially agree. Uh, in terms of what he said about Micah, that's my next video that's gonna drop later on this evening. He transferred. He started out at Penn State, then he transferred to the University of Oklahoma (OU), and now he's transferring to Southern. Uh, Now he's right from the perspective that you know, especially if you play football, college football, your primary reason for transferring is that you want to be a starter. But some of these guys that's entering the transfer portal are already starters. Like, for example, I know with Coach Prime, he made his own situation bad in terms of the way he was talking about, the players at Colorado. And don't get me wrong, they only won one game, so they weren't that good a team. So he's not crying over the players that he lost. But at the same token, bro, there's no way he's going to be able to replace as many players as he lost. So, sometimes you have to learn how to be quiet. But in terms of, players transferring, the main reason you want transfer is because you want to start. But even with that being said, his starting wide receivers on his team, he had a good spring game, and he was going to be the primary option from a receiving standpoint. And he had a good spring game, and then he entered the transfer portal. Even if you look at Southern, Trey Lane, you know, probably was projected to be one of Southern's better players on their defense. But he had a good spring game, and he entered the transfer portal. From what I'm understanding, that basically he didn't like, I guess he was being coached too hard, and he didn't like that. So, you know, being a starter and getting playing time is the primary reason. But like he said, some instances it could be NIL deals. Other instances is because they feel like it's not a fit for them from a scheme standpoint. Another reason is, we just live in a generation of softer players. You know, in our day, it was nothing for a coach to slap you in the back of the helmet or scream in your ear hole or whatever the case may be. But players nowadays, like, they don't want to be coached hard. So, that's why, I look at guys like, Zion Williamson, Carl Anthony Towns, and I can see the potential in them. Had they played in a couple generations previous, they will be, probably perennial first team or NBA type players because they will be held to a higher standard, and it will be coach harder and push harder. So in many instances, players won't start right away. And in addition to them wanting to start right away and play, they want to be coddled and pampered. But from the standpoint of the NIL, he's right from a college football perspective. But all of these guys just aren't entering the portal just so they could go somewhere else to be a starter. When in many instances they could be a starter on the championship caliber team already. NIL deal is part of what they're considering.
I
And I go ahead, Ray.
I would say I would agree because it's like you could look at a person who's probably, man, what's a good example? I'm gonna just make up a case scenario, but it makes sense to me though. Like, you could be a starting wide receiver at Ohio State, got an NIL deal. You might want to transfer to Alabama and be their starting wide receiver, or better yet, you might want to transfer to USC because that's in LA. You might have better NIL deals in LA than you would have in Ohio. So I would say I do agree with that, and that would make sense to me.
And look, that makes sense to me as well, coach. And even for someone who is not as knowledgeable as myself about the NIL deal, that makes things so clear. And so guys, let's jump to the next thing on the agenda. And let's talk about Wilder versus Joshua, the potential fight in Saudi Arabia. Coach, start us off. What are your thoughts? Coach, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, that's my bad, y'all. But the thing about the Wilder Joshua fight is this fight has been years in the making. It should have been made minimum of 5 years ago. At one point, Wilder was the WBC champion, and Joshua was the unified champion. He had all the other belts, and instead of Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua taking the fight, basically they really didn't want no smoke with Wilder, and they tried to come up with a variety of different reasons. A lot of the fighters that Joshua was fighting was getting a percentage. Whether it was a fourth of the proceeds, or a third, or whatever the case may be. He didn't even want to give Deontay Wilder a percentage. He wanted to give Deontay Wilder a flat fee, and Wilder was like, "All right, I'm cool with that. I'll take the sharp money the first fight, as long as you take the sharp money in the rematch." And he was like, "Nah." And then it was like, "Okay, well, we're gonna give you a bigger flat fee." And he was like, "All right, cool, same thing. I'll take the sharp money if you take the sharp money in a rematch." And it was like, "No, if we win, or if you win, we get a 50-50 split, in the rematch." And he was like, "That makes no sense. Like, if I beat you, I become the A side. So I should get the lion's share in the rematch." But they didn't want to concede. Of course, they didn't want to give Wilder a rematch clause, whereas Joshua would have it once he got knocked out. So, they were doing all these things to really not make the fight happen. And basically, it's sad because it would have been the biggest fight in boxing, maybe boxing history at that point. But we're at the point now where Wilder has lost twice to Tyson Fury. Joshua has lost to Andy Ruiz Jr. He's lost to Alexander Usyk twice. The fight it's not what it once was, but it's still a huge mega fight. Despite what people are saying. Of course, shout out to the brother 78 Sports TV because he's the first person to really talk about it. Basically, in the fight, it'll be a doubleheader fight where Usyk and Fury will fight for undisputed, and Joshua and Wilder would also fight. I think supposedly there's like what $200 million in the pot for the four fighters. From what I'm understanding, Eddie Hearn has gone to Saudi Arabia. He's talked to the Saudis. Many people feel like he's going to sabotage the fight because he still doesn't want Joshua to fight Wilder. And the crazy thing about it is when Wilder wanted to fight him initially, he was going to get $50 million up front and 50-50 on the back end. And he hasn't seen that type of money in his career since then. So I think he's realizing that, hey, he needs to take this fight while he can. Uh, many of his handlers and many people in his camp still telling him to avoid Wilder because they know he really can't win that fight. The first time Wilder lands a clean right hand, Joshua's going out, period. So hopefully the fight comes off. But in the back of my mind, I have a feeling that Eddie Hearn is going to do something to potentially sabotage the fight. Hopefully we get it, but we'll see.
Okay. Are you in agreement, Ray? And from what I see, that the fight is has a potential to happen in December of 2023, which is this year at the end of the year. So, is that something you're going to be watching? And do you agree with Coach?
Yes, that's definitely a fight I will watch, and I would say I do agree with Coach according to his prediction for the fight. I do feel that Deontay Wilder could knock out Anthony Joshua, but me just from my perspective of boxing, I don't like to get my hopes up about a potential boxing match until the ink meets the paper, until the contract is signed, until everything's like official. Because man, there's so many fights that boxing fans and so many fights that should have happened. But yeah, I do feel like that'll be a good fight. I feel like Deontay Wilder will win via knockout. And that would make the fight card even better if it was like a double header with Juszczyk versus Fury and Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. So
And just
And
to, and just I don't mean to cut you off, Kate, and just to kind of elaborate on what Raymond has said, he's 100% accurate. There's so many big fights in the sport of boxing that we don't get. Like he was saying a few shows ago, that's the reason why the UFC, not in terms of the mega fights, but just on a fight-to-fight basis, the UFC has surpassed boxing because of the simple fact that as fight fans, we can't get the best fighters fighting the best fighters. I mean, in terms of, Wilder in Fury, I mean Wilder in Joshua. As soon as Joshua beat Klitschko, we should have got a Wilder and Joshua fight then. But, you know, Eddie Hearn and Barry Hearn has gotten away. They didn't basically, you know, that's the cash cow in terms of Anthony Joshua. That was the reason why Eddie Hearn got the $1 billion maximum deal from the zone. So he didn't want to see Joshua get knocked out. So that's why he kept pushing off the fight. And that's the reason why we don't get most of the fights like Spence Crawford. There's no way we shouldn't have got Spence Crawford. Some of the other fights that we haven't gotten as boxing fans. So that's the reason why so many fans like Raymond, they prefer the UFC over boxing.
well, and I see that uh, that Wilder was offered $50 million, uh, to make they made the deal a little more sweeter to get things going and push for a date and to get them to sign. So, do you think with that amount of money that's offered, Ray, do you think that will make him want to fight even more or not? And especially if you have the potential of losing your title or gaining a title. Do do you agree?
Who you asking, myself or Raymond?
Yay.
um, I think I don't know because of course a lot of athletes they value money, but just listening to what Coach said about concerning like the outcomes of fights and the politics of fights, like when I was watching the Javante Davis fight versus Ryan Garcia, the friends I was watching it with, we was joking. It was like, "Hey, would you let Javante Davis punch you for $20 million?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll let him punch me for $20 million and stuff like that." So it just got me thinking about fighters. Like, hey, are you willing to get? They're thinking like, "Am I willing to get knocked out for $50 million?" Like, I could get $50 million, but another law is gonna go in a column for me. But at the same time, you could potentially win a fight and get $50 million. So I just guess they're balancing out the outcomes. Like, would they rather the $50 million despite of the outcome, or is the outcome of the fight their number one priority?
Coach, your thought?
Well, first of all, Joshua's already been offered $50 million by Deontay Wilder,
Yes, and
in
that's what I just
PBC.
spoke of.
So he's already been offered $50 million. I think the issue from from the fight happening standpoint, because of course, the game that Eddie Hearn played initially was the fact that You know, does Al Hammond and Deontay Wilder and PBC, do they actually have $50 million? Well, we need proof of funds. And I'm like, dude, you know the money is there, but that was his way of saying, no, Anthony Joshua, you taking this $50 million is really in your best interest. You really could build generational wealth with that $50 million. However, you're my cash cow. You work for me, basically, even though I'm your promoter. And it might be, you might could make $50 million right then and there, but over the long haul, I'm not gonna be able to make as much money with you. It's gonna depreciate your value as a fighter. So I would rather you make that 50 million over time as opposed to just taking up the $50 million right now and get being guaranteed 90 million total because it was a 2-fight deal and he turned it down. But I think at this point, Anthony Joshua, he's ready to cash out because he's already lost to Andy Ruiz, which Ruiz was a huge underdog. He lost twice to Usyk. He knows deep down he really can't beat Wilder. But I think he's at the point now where, hey, I might not get another opportunity to make this $50 million. Whereas Wilder, no matter what he does, he's gonna be the A side. I mean, he has a potential, fourth fight with Tyson Fury on the table. He can potentially fight Alexander Usyk if Usyk is willing to give up all his belts to get knocked out. He can fight Francis Ngannou in a huge crossover boxing MMA fight. He can fight Andy Ruiz, who already beat Anthony Joshua, and of course, the two of those fighters in the two fights they fought, they split the two fights. So Wilder has a linear options available to him. He's gonna be able to get $50 million because he's gotten 20 million for fighting lesser fighters. So the thing about it is, Wilder's willing to take the fight. The question is Joshua gonna be willing to take it? And at this point, I think he's looking at the situation with regret from the standpoint of, hey, I would rather got knocked out twice by Wilder than to lose to Ruiz and lose to Usyk twice. Maybe I should have just fought that fight and took the money. So I think at this point, I think he's going to be willing to take it. But like Rama said, it's the sport of boxing. Until a fight officially happens, you really don't know. Because I'm going to be truthful. I was extremely skeptical of the Gervonta Tank Davis Ryan Garcia fight even coming off. I thought, Ryan was going to pull a fast one in some type of way, avoid fighting Tank, because he had done it so much in the past in terms of avoiding Tank and avoiding Devin Haney.
Okay, so if we want to say shout out to Billy Bob as well as Jared. I'm sorry about that, guys. So let's jump on to another topic at hand. Guys, what are you thinking about? And we have had Coach to go ahead and predict this, but Mike Budenheiser, what are your thoughts of them letting him go, Coach?
Well, in terms of Mike Budenholzer, I said this. I mean, I'm going to be truthful. He's a decent coach. But in terms of him being, even though he's won a championship with the Bucks, he's not an elite caliber coach. If you look at coaches of the past, he's not a Phil Jackson. If you look at current coaches, he's not a Doc Rivers. Even though Doc Rivers has had his coaching struggles, he's not an elite caliber coach in my estimation. And at certain times from an X's and O's standpoint, he does well, and then in other instances, he struggles in terms of making adjustments. I mean, I remember, in the playoffs in the past with the Bucks, I like Brooke Lopez, but I'm like, bro, like when they were playing against the Suns in the finals, like Chris Paul was putting him like literally in every pick and roll situation. Like, you stupid for just trying to. I mean, I know the NBA has changed over the years. That's why I tell Raymond and I, when we had these conversations, like, it's a different league compared to when Rude Dog and I was watching. But like, bro, like, you cannot put him in this advantageous situation. You cannot put him literally in every single pick and roll, because guess what? Like, he's a 7-footer. You asking him to check. A 6'1" point guard is extremely elusive and crafty and quick. It's like, bro, you put him in a no-win situation. That's like, years ago, if Chris Paul was playing in that day and age, like asking him to stick Shaq on the block. It's like it's stupid. So from an X's and O's standpoint, he doesn't make adjustments. You know, a lot of his lineups are questionable in many instances. So the point I was just making, like, you know, just from a coach, watching it from a coach's lens, some of the things he's done, I'm like, bro, from a coach's standpoint, there's no way he should be making these type of mistakes and not making these adjustments and doing these stupid things. Some of these lineups, you know, he would have at the end of the games. So, you know, that's why I just kind of said, like, hey, the handwriting is on the wall. If they had an elite caliber coach, you know, like maybe like a Toronto, like a Doc Rivers, uh, you know, whoever, I think the Bucks would be in a much better situation. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not all on Mike Budenholzer because, you know, Chris Middleton is not what he once was. And a lot of role players didn't step up the way they should have. But more than anything, like Rudolph was saying, from a matchup standpoint, the Bucks don't match up well with the Hawks. I mean, not the Hawks. I mean the Miami Heat. They don't match up well with the Heat. But I feel like from an X and O standpoint, he could have did a lot, much better than what he did. And that's why, you know, in the previous show, you know, I was critical of Rudolph because I'm like, bro, like, you have all this smoke for Willie Green. And from an X's and O's, from a coaching standpoint, Willie Green does a much better job from my perspective than Mike Budenholzer does. So why you don't have the same smoke for Mike Budenholzer? And like I predicted, he got fired. So it kind of is what it is at this point, you know.
Okay, Ray, are you in agreement with that?
Um, I just feel like coaches ought to get a little bit more grace because I was just looking at the past couple of teams who won championships and they fired their coach. I'm like, golly. I understand you could have like a bad coaching stretch, but it's like like give people room for development and for grace. Because I mean, if the Bucks would have won the championship or still be in the playoffs with those lineups, people wouldn't really be criticizing them like that. So I'm just saying, like, it's not like he's been a coach for 5 years. Even if he was the coach for 5 years and won one championship, I feel like that's good enough. Now I don't want to say good enough, but I feel like that's not a real valid reason to fire someone. You know what I'm saying? And then it's not like I could use Coach O for example. He won a national championship and they got fired the very next year. I mean, even though that's kind of look bad, but it was a complete like 180. Like you national championships, now you at the bottom of the barrel. It's not like that happened to the Bucks. It's not like they won the championship, then it just went downhill. It's like, nah, they stayed at the top. They was the number one seed this year again. And everybody knows it's very hard to win championships. So, that's just my take on it. I feel like they ought to have a little bit more grace for coaches and not be ready to like fire them and off them, the moment they have, they lose out or mess up, you know what I'm saying, like that. So, because I mean, if there was the reporters was asking Giannis after the game, like, would you consider this season a failure? And it's like pretty much he was saying like season not a failure. But I mean, that's just from an overall season standpoint. Yeah, the coaching probably could have been better, but me personally, I feel like there's no reason to fire him.
Well, Ray, I heard you mention Coach O, but also in some of those instances, it's more than just the coaching, it's off the field things that are going on that causes some coaches to be fired. I'm not saying in this instance with Mike, but in that instance with Coach O, there were off the field issues, but that's not here nor there. But
No, I don't mean to cut you off, kid. You brought up a very valid point. First of all, I mean, I think he's right from the standpoint, just from a societal standpoint. We should have grace for people and we should treat people the way we want to be treated. But from a coaching standpoint, man, he gets paid millions of dollars per year to produce the results that he probably only produced maybe one out of those 5 years. And that's a good example. There were years where he should have got much further in the playoffs than he actually got. So he's been extended grace considering the amount of money he makes. You got to understand, if you make, I don't know exactly what his contract is, but if you're making millions of dollars per year, you gonna have millions of dollars per year worth of expectations. That's why people are so hard on Zion Williamson, because you have a contract for $231 million. People expect you to live up to those expectations for that amount of money. Now, with the Coach O standpoint, I understood it was from a standpoint where he won a national championship one year, and the next year they were basically a 500 team. But like Kay was saying, basically it was a lack of institutional control. Now, of course, had he won another national championship, alumni and the fan base and many individuals in Tigerland, they probably would have been able to been willing to turn a blind eye and look the other way had he kept winning. But the fact that you went from winning the national championship to being a 500 team, and you having all these off the field issues, the issues with Darius Geis and all these other players that went on to the league, having all these off the field issues in terms of, SA. Of course, we can't say the actual word due to YouTube guidelines. But the point of it is, it's like having a lack of institutional control and losing is a bad combination at LSU.
Whoa. Now I feel like we kind of got off of like subject. I thought we were just talking about coaches' performances, and I know we were talking
No,
about off the field issues.
no, no,
So
no, 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 no. But this is what I'm trying to tell you. Your Coach O analogy comparing it to Mike Budenholzer is a bad analogy from the standpoint of Mike Budenholzer just from an X's and O's standpoint didn't perform. Coach O had a bad coaching performance and his players had off the field issues.
but
So you can't conflate the two. It's like basically you have 5 here with Budenholzer, but you have 15 here with Coach O because Coach O, he wasn't performing from an X's and O's standpoint because his team, they went from winning the national championship to being a 500 team. But he
so
had an infinite amount of off the field issues that make in addition to that.
But my thing is, even if those off the field issues would have never happened, still would have had the same result. So my thing is, I could use another example of a period of grace. How long was Sean Payton the coach of the Saints? Tell me how many Super Bowls we got, and how many disappointing seasons we had. I ain't gonna say disappointments. How many seasons where we should have easily went to the Super Bowl, which we didn't. But Sean Payton was never fired. Sean Payton actually left. I mean, and it was a lot of times where like it was some questionable play calling by Sean Payton. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's what I'm saying. It's like if it's a couple of years out, like 1 or 2 years out, no, you shouldn't fire him unless it's a drastic change. But my thing is like that's what I mean by a level of grace. And with Zion Williamson case, since you touched on that, Zion Williamson not even playing. So we can't refer to Zion Williamson from an X's and O's standpoint. He's not even playing enough to be referred to from that standpoint. So that's what I'm saying with coaching. It's like, look, if I win a championship this year, as long as I'm not below 500 or just playing like being like an awful coach from an X's and O's standpoint, I feel like I shouldn't be fired. That's why I was pulling that up. I mean, you could look at the Celtics coach that had the scandal, with the
Ime Udoka.
yeah. It's like the Celtics was doing good from an X's and O's standpoint, still got rid of him. So it's like that, but that's why I brought in Coach O. I feel like regardless of the off the field issues, just the fact that they was having a bad season, that's why they got rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you from the perspective of a level of grace, but I'm still gonna go back. You using the Sean Payton analogy. I mean, I still kind of feel like you right from the standpoint, but it's still kind of a little bit different. I think you have to judge each case from an individual case by case basis because even with the Sean Payton analogy, people don't realize when they lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship game, had it not been for a bad call, the Saints probably going to play the Patriots and win the Super Bowl. So from that perspective, you got to
Well,
realize
let
in the NFL, if you lose one game, from a coaching standpoint, I had like my biggest games. You have a couple calls, couple penalties that go the other team's way, and that's the difference in the game. Whereas if you lose 4 times in the 7-game series, bro, that's an X and O standpoint. So I agree with the premise behind you saying in terms of us giving people grace. But like I said, when you have making that much money, you have that amount of expectations, and you got to realize year after year, if you lose, you lose to the Vikings, you lose to the Rams in these different games, in the NFL it's different because one call goes the opposite way, it changed the whole complexion of the game. Whereas if you lose 4 out of 7 games, you just got out coached if the teams are if both teams are evenly matched. So, that's my thing. So I agree with the premise behind what you're saying. I just kind of disagree with the standpoint of you got to give them a level of grace, bro. They might have had like 5 years. Out of that 5 years, they won one championship. So if they underachieved those 4 years and he making that amount of money, I mean, you're giving him a sufficient amount of grace. I mean, he's had multiple opportunities to. There was situations where he didn't make coaching adjustments. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. So at some point, you got to realize, hey, he's not going anymore as a coach. You just need to go in a different direction. And I mean, I watched a ridiculous amount of Bucks games over the years. Even when he was with the Hawks, I felt like he was overrated as a coach. And I mean, that's not me putting him down. That's me just putting my honest coaching hat on. Like, he's not one of the elite top tier coaches for the amount of money he's getting paid, even though he's won a championship. But you have to take into account that he's also at the best player in the league also.
Well, Sean Payton was the coach for 15 seasons. So, and as we have Billy Bob that says that Sean Payton, he was winning conference championships. So that made a difference also.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't, and just to kind of reiterate, what he was saying, I mean, Budenholzer won the one NBA championship.
Only one conference championship, though.
Huh?
Only won one conference championship. We got multiple NFC South titles, but we only got one conference championship.
Well, bro, no. Well, but even with that being said, though, bro, they took the Rams. I mean, I know we could go back to the Cardinals thing. They took the NFC championship away from that year. They beat the Rams.
Nah, hey, I ain't gonna lie. The more that I think about that game, ask yourself this: who got the ball first in overtime? Us.
I mean, that, bro.
You got to look at it from the X's and O's. I feel like they did miss a call in overtime when Drew Brees got hit, and the ball, one of the defender's hands went under his face mask. But at the same time, I felt like that no call should have never happened. Because Sean Payton should have never been throwing the ball in that situation. He should have been running the ball.
I agree with you from that standpoint, but it's still irrelevant. I'm telling you, from a coach's standpoint, when and all right, you should have won this game, the game should be over, and you had the momentum, and the other team gets the momentum. Sometimes, no matter what you do, you can't turn it around in your favor. That's why they talk about momentum in sports. And in that particular instance, the Saints got the ball first, but the momentum was clearly on the Rams side. After that point, I hate to say it, I knew the Rams were going to win. Because after that no call, bro, the game was over. And, I mean, I know you could say, hey, hindsight is 20/20, and, they still had the opportunity to win. Because that situation and the situation with the New England Patriots going on to win their first Super Bowl with Tom Brady, bro, that was a trash call that they made. The whole tuck rule thing, I don't care if nobody said that was a fumble. And even though the game, it kept playing on, it gave the Patriots so much momentum that they went on to win that game, and eventually they went on to win the Super Bowl. And that kind of was the genesis of the Belichick-Brady dynasty. Without that play, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know, we still talking about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the same light. So,
okay, so guys, I want to express that because I was looking up that Mike, he was making $8 million. So I'm thinking that it was $2 million a year, or I'm unsure if that's over the course of his coaching career so far, or if that is just each year total. But they state that he made $8 million for his coaching. And so when you're paying your coach, guys, and overall, I understand what you are both saying, and it comes basically down to one issue that they're looking at: overall performance. As if you're paying someone and you want your guys to make it to a certain point, if they are not doing it, who if you're on a job Raymond, let's use you for example. If you're on a job and your manager tells you, Raymond, I want this, that, and the other performed, and something falls short, do you think they're going to fire your manager or they're going to fire you? You know, as the old folks say, doodle rolls downhill. So they're going to get rid of you first, right?
I'm gonna keep 100. At my job, it kind of works different. The corporate world's kind of changed a little bit, just
Well,
like how
I'm not
changed.
saying your job in particular.
No, I know. I get the case scenario, but that's why I was about to give this example. Sometimes, and people will come to the manager and say, "Hey, why isn't the person that falls under you not performing like they should?" So, in some case scenarios, they would get on a person above. For like, sometimes they would actually fire the actual employee, and sometimes they will go to the manager like, "Hey, why isn't this employee doing what he needs to be done because you're his manager?"
And sometimes they go out and clear everyone out. They will get rid of the the coach. They probably will get rid of the
The players, the staff, we see it all the time in sports.
yes.
Sometimes it's just the coach get fired. Sometimes they just release a couple of players. Sometimes they do a clean sweep and they raid everybody out the organization.
Coach, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I agree with you from the perspective. Basically, you were saying what I was telling Raymond. I agree with Raymond premise from the standpoint of you want to grant people grace, but when there's that amount of money and expectation on the line, you're not gonna keep getting an infinite amount of chances. At some point, they're gonna say we need to pivot and go in a different direction. So essentially, that was the premise behind my point. But he's right from the standpoint of there are instances where the general manager basically gets rid of the coach, and essentially it's not fair in certain instances because basically they're just pointing the finger and they're just trying to extend their career as a GM a few years so they can make a few million extra, whatever they're getting per year extra, and it keeps things going. And there are other instances where basically you wipe out the whole organization. But if the general manager's done a good enough job to put you in position to be successful, where you have like good players, good enough. Like in this instance with the Bucks, you have a championship caliber team. In this instance, the owner and the GM gonna get rid of the head coach because essentially you have everything you need to win. Now maybe you could say, someone like Chris Middleton, like severely underperformed, whoever the case may be. If you want to point out a specific player, considering he makes the amount of money he makes, he's the second best player on the team. He hasn't been as good as he once was since they won a championship. I know he was out for the playoffs last year, but he hasn't returned to playoff form. But the point I'm trying to make is there are instances where they make a clean sweep, but if you have all the players you need at your disposal to make a championship run or to win a championship, in many instances they're gonna point the finger at the coach. And in many instances, if there's a superstar athlete, whether it's a quarterback, a superstar NBA player, most times they're gonna pick the superstar player over the coach. And in this instance, I'm sure Giannis didn't push the issue for Mike Budenholzer to get fired anyway. It just was the fact that ownership just realized, like, bro, we appreciate you, the championship you won for us, but we just need to go in a different direction because, like, you're not producing the results we want for the amount of money we're paying you.
Okay. With that being said, let's move on to a passionate topic for us, Louisianians. Um, the New Orleans Saints, the draft grade. Ray, start us off.
I mean, I feel satisfied with the Saints. With their selections. From the D tackle that they got from Clemson. Um,
Brian Breesy.
Yeah, Brian Breesy, the DNs. It's going to take me a little minute to learn their names as well. I feel like they address some needs. I know I'm pretty sure we discussed this in a later episode, but I'm satisfied with their draft grades. I mean, I'm satisfied with their draft, and I'll give them like I would say like a B plus. But like I was saying in the previous episode, you kind of got to wait for them to like flourish during the season for you to be like, all right, this was a good draft. All right, this was a horrible draft. You know what I'm saying? But they got one undrafted free agent that I really like. He's from Tulane. I forgot his name as well. I think his name Nick Anderson. I believe that's his name. I feel like he's going to end up being a dog at linebacker. That's what he plays. He plays linebacker, and he played for Tulane. So I feel like they probably got a gem or so with their undrafted free agents, which I noticed the Saints tend to do. They tend to find a diamond in the rough in their undrafted free agents, but I feel very good, about the Saints draft picks, but we just gotta wait until the season starts, to have confirmation.
Okay, coach, your thoughts?
Uh, I have to agree with not across the board, but most of what Raymond said in terms of from uh from a draft perspective. Many instances, it's hindsight 2020. There were instances where I said, well, hey, the Saints should have drafted this guy. They drafted that guy. And I'm like, oh, I didn't like that pick. And then after the fact, things pan out. So in terms of giving them a draft grade, I would give them a B. In terms of the Brian Breesy pick, I know Rude Dog, he hated that pick. But basically, it was a position of need. And he was the best player on their draft board that was available. So I really don't knock that pick. In terms of the second pick they had, Isaiah Fauski from the defensive end from Notre Dame. I wasn't too high on that pick from the standpoint of I feel like they have enough defensive ends in terms of you drafted Peyton Turner, you drafted him high, you move back up to get him. You still have Cam Jordan, you have Carl Glanderson, you have Passano. So I feel like they have enough defensive ends, but from a value standpoint, many people are high on the pick from the standpoint of, at some point, he's already started to decline Cam Jordan. At some point, Cam Jordan is no longer going to be in the Saints uniform. So I think that's a good pick for the future. And, just to kind of, for me, thinking back over the years, I remember the year that the Saints drafted Robert Meacham. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, that was a stupid pick. Because, like, you already have enough wide receivers. But he ended up being such a steal of a pick. You like, wow, I was wrong because it really worked out in their favor. So he has the potential to be that kind of player. So that's why I'm really not against that particular pick. And of course, you had them draft running back Keandre Miller from TCU. Essentially, they anticipating that at some point that Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended. We all are anticipating that. So I think it was a good pickup. I think him and Williams going to be a good complement to each other. They also ended up getting the next pick from Old Dominion offensive tackle Nick. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Saldivari. Then they got quarterback Jake Hanner. Now, in terms of the Fresno State quarterback, I'm gonna be truthful. More than likely, he won't make the roster. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking they planning on some kind of way getting him to the practice squad. They're gonna cut him, and hopefully he could be their practice squad quarterback. We'll see. Raymond is shaking his head, but we're not living in a day and age where Rule Dog and where you kept three quarterbacks on the roster. You live in a day and age where they want that extra roster spot for maybe like a gunner on the kickoff team or a hybrid DB safety linebacker type. So it's not in the day and age where we grew up where teams automatically kept three quarterbacks. In many instances, these teams they basically uh, they saving that extra roster spot and they putting that third string quarterback on the practice squad. So maybe they might keep him, they might not. Who knows? I really don't know. They also drafted safety from Minnesota, Jordan Howden. I don't know how that's gonna work out. Many individuals are big on them drafting wide receiver A.T. Perry from Wake Forest. Many individuals think that he's gonna be like a steal in terms of at that position where they drafted him. You know, I think he could be a good player. The Saints have had, Mickey Loomis. He's had a tendency of getting good wide receivers over the years, even in later rounds. So I'm gonna trust the pick. Not in terms of like what Raymond was saying, in terms of undrafted free agents. The Saints, I felt like they did a good job. I don't know if people remember the celebrate. Since I'm a huge Southern fan and I'm really big in the HBCU football. The fact that the Saints was able to get Shaq Davis from South Carolina State, he pretty much wreaked havoc against Jackson State that year in a Celebration Bowl. I think that's a huge pickup. Now it's gonna be interesting to see if somebody like Traquan Smith, if he's gonna actually still be a Saint.
Oh,
Many individuals, and see that's what I was saying. Many individuals, like myself, we not high on Traquan Smith. I think he's been serviceable over the years, but I mean, for the amount of money that he's getting, I haven't been big on Traquan Smith over the years. So, like I said, Shaq Davis, wide receiver from South Carolina State. And then, of course, you got a SWAC player, Mark Evans II from Arkansas Pine Bluff. I think the fact that Teron Armstead went to Arkansas Pine Bluff, many individuals comparing him to Teron Armstead. I don't know if he's going to be that good, but, the fact that you have somebody like him, they got Anthony Orji from Vanderbilt. So the Saints, in terms of like undrafted free agents, they did a good job. In terms of the draft itself, I think they did a decent job. Some individuals giving them B pluses, other individuals like Mel Kiper Jr. I think Mel Kiper Jr., like Rudolph said over the years, he sometimes he just kind of, guesstimating. So I'm not gonna go as low as Mel Kiper Jr. give him a B minus. I'm not gonna go as high as other people giving him an A minus, B plus. I'm gonna just give him a B. I think they did a decent job, but like Raymond said, hindsight is 2020, so it's gonna be remain to be seen. What these players do during the course of the season.
I have a quick question for you guys. It doesn't concern you that we have players that hasn't even been touched as free agents. Like we have Johnson, Jawan Johnson, and we have Malcolm Roach and JT Gray, and I mean the list goes on. That does that not concern you guys, Ray?
wait, could you kind of repeat that question again?
Does it concern you about those free agents that hasn't been touched with the Saints? Like you have Gray and Roach and Johnson, and we have guys that have performed in the past that haven't been touched.
Wait, you talking about them resign? Because all of them resigned with the Saints.
Yeah, all of them. They gave Jawan Johnson a 2-year
Yeah,
extension. So
Okay,
all
okay,
of those guys have been, like Raymond said, they've all got contract extensions from the Saints.
right.
okay, okay. I'm sorry. So because um, what I'm looking at, it states that they have not. They are still free agents. Okay. So Raymond, are you in agreement with what Coach is saying that about he, because I know you stated that you are happy with what we see with the Saints until things really hit the pavement, till things happen this season. But with Coach got into a lot of details with what we have gotten, and so are you in agreement with what he's stating overall?
Yeah. I'm in agreement. I don't see any differences. Anything that I disagree with.
Okay, well, guys, it was a pleasure to be here today. We had a great discussion. Are there any closing comments for you, Coach
Let Raymond close. I'll close after.
Ray?
Closing discussions. I enjoyed the discussion today. I enjoyed our perspectives and point of views on like these topics that we discussed. Um, I'm just hoping that y'all just continue to support the live stream, continue to support Coach 67 Sports TV. And just like, comment, subscribe, everything of that such. Follow me on Instagram _King Ray _ subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I believe it's Ray Swank. But yeah, just thanks for all the support. Thanks for watching us, viewing us, and you know,
Coach.
Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC Lions Den basketball community in this particular instance. Uh, Appreciate everybody that's been rocking with us since day one. Like Rama said, like, share, subscribe. May the 25th is my goal date to have 1,000 subscribers by that point. I know it's an extremely lofty goal, but I've always been told if you reach for the stars, the least you could do is get the moon. So that's what I'm aiming for. Later on today, I'm going to drop another Southern University video. Like Rama said, it just got a new transfer quarterback from Oklahoma University. In addition to that, check myself and my brother out on his channel, Jared 11 Green, where we're going to talk about, workplace politics. And in addition to that, shout out to everybody that was in the chat today. Shout out to Billy Bob. Shout out to the brother Jared 11 Green. We're going to click up together, as a panel on his show with the brothers. So hopefully everyone has a blessed, phenomenal evening. We'll catch y'all next week at the same time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time here on YouTube. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a blessed day.
Guys, we want to thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you have anything you would like for us to talk about, please put it in the comment section below. Please share it with everyone that you know who's a sports fanatic. And for our closing quote, you'll never know what you're capable of until you take that first step and just go for it. Natasha Hastings made that quote. So, guys, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.